more than a substance. Much of the research from this speech has come from Dr. Brozvik's Drugs and Human Behavior class and the material I've been exposed to in class, Dr. Raymond's book Unchain Your Brain, as well as some of my own personal struggles with addiction. How do people get hooked on a substance, whether legal or illegal? If people are compared with the vervet monkeys on the island of St. Kitts, it is arguable that people are genetically predisposed to addiction. If heavy drinking runs in one's genetic background, it is possible that person could develop an addiction to alcohol. The monkeys, based on their history and based on their current actions, it could be argued that those monkeys have a genetic predisposition. Aside from predisposition, there's various other factors. Perhaps the most important is brain function. The way we treat our brains determines how our brains will treat us. Everything we consume, whether it be food, beverage, alcohol, legal and or illegal drugs, cigarettes, etc., our daily activities, all of that affects our brain, and that in turn affects how we act as people. The prefrontal cortex is our commander-in-chief. When we're young, we don't have a strong prefrontal cortex. Our brains will learn from experience if they're treated with care at a young age. Parents should pay attention to this. What parents do, their own behavior, how they treat or do not treat children, what they feed or do not feed their children, what they do discuss and do not discuss with their children, all affects the prefrontal cortex. According to Dr. Raymond, adolescents typically have less efficient activity in the PFC because this part of the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25. Until the age of 25, the brain is undergoing a process called myelinization, in which a protective substance called myelin wraps around the brain's neurons, helping the brain's nerve cells work up to 10 to 100 times more efficiently. When drugs are used at a young age, it affects the development of the prefrontal cortex. While I didn't come from a broken home, I did go through an experimental phase. I started drinking coffee at the age of 13. And I started drinking it heavily at the age of 19. Between the ages of 17 and 24, I started using tobacco, marijuana, alcohol, and hallucinogens. I sparingly used hallucinogens, but when I was in college, I started drinking heavily. When I turned 21, it soon became an addiction. I'd wake up, it was so easily accessible. I'd wake up thinking about drinking. I'd wake up thinking about giving up drinking. I'd exhaust most of my funds. Practically my whole paycheck went to the bar. I was frequently late with rent money because of it. I had no savings account. I also had a few near-death experiences between 2004 and 2010. One final one was a wake-up call, and luckily not a coffin. But in spite of all that, I still continued to use. In hindsight, if I eat healthier and exercise more as a child than a preteen, my addictions would have never kicked into full gear. I'd often raid the refrigerator and pantry for the sweetest snacks after school. I was young, my metabolism helped me maintain weight, but my emotions ran my life. It got to the point where I wouldn't even fight cravings, letting my limbic system and basal ganglia completely take over. I had no supervisor. Now I do because I exercise and I eat healthier. My prefrontal cortex could be stronger. It's a work in progress, though. While drinking heavily, I religiously followed Dr. Raymond's 4 C's: craving, compulsion, loss of control, and continued use in spite of consequences. Addicts continue to use, even though they see every reason and they have every reason to stop. And it's never too late to get sober, but because of this, it is so hard. Heroin addicts suffer rough withdrawal, making them feel very sick, so they continue to use in spite of consequences, even when they've exhausted everything. Meth addicts experience extreme depression once they've beaten withdrawal because meth gave them such a dopamine rush that it becomes so salient to the brain in terms of pleasure. One recovered meth addict studied in Dr. Brozvik's class mentioned that it takes the brain 6 months to 1 year to generate dopamine on its own. So that depression could easily lead somebody back to a relapse. Drugs play with the chemicals dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and endorphins. If your brain is treated right, these chemicals can create pleasure, can make you feel natural highs. Healthy eating. Avoid fast foods. Limit foods high in fat and sugar. Eat fruits, vegetables, drink green tea, and limit caffeine. Exercise. This will keep dopamine levels healthy, allowing one to stay focused. Exercise also allows one tryptophan to get to the brain faster than other proteins. That allows healthier serotonin levels. Consume food and beverage that's high in glutamic acid, such as raw spinach, oats, green tea, lentils, as well as magnesium and vitamin B supplements. Eat small amounts of chocolate every day to bring your brain natural pleasure. According to Dr. Raymond, cocoa has been shown to increase endorphin production in the brain. So, by doing things to balance dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and endorphins, you can create healthy brain function. Engage your brain in healthy activities such as exercise, learning a musical instrument, even education. Go to school for something one is passionate about. Going to school for something one is passionate about increases healthy brain activity, especially when the person applies what they've learned. It's okay to get hooked on brain healthy activities, and by doing so, it'll keep one distracted from relapse. Cravings are easily stifled when one's PFC can calm the limbic system without a struggle. The methadone program keeps heroin addicts addicted because it offers one solution, not considering the person's psychological addiction. If an addict makes it through withdrawal cold turkey, he has to deal with the cravings and the depression. But during an inpatient rehab, he should be forced to stimulate healthy brain function with proper diet and exercise. Rehab needs to be a process where a person learns his or her brain and how to take control of it, not a place where a person trades one addiction for the next. So to be proactive parents, consider your own behaviors and how they affect your children. Make sure to have that conversation about drugs and alcohol and include inhalants in that conversation. Do this before they reach the experimental age that you reach, that most adolescents reach. Rather than drugs or alcohol, a teenager may get hooked on playing sports, academics, making music, dating, all of which are activities that promote healthy brain function, just so long as no head injuries are sustained in the process. Give them the tools to have a healthy brain, so by the time the myelin is fully developed, they have a strong prefrontal cortex.